You're listening to Zoom the TBT with Charge and Hayner.
Oh, sorry. This is Zoom the TBT with Charge and Hayner. Where are we throwing it downside just like LaFonso Ellis at the pit? Charge, we're kind of letting people know we're taping these as we're watching. What just happened as we're taping this?
Oh, that was intense. So obviously, really good game out there in New Mexico between Enchantment and not defending champs, but finalist Heartfire got a little chippy between Putney and another guy, and LaFonso Ellis got involved. People are getting kicked out. Drew Gooden wanted to fight him on the way out the door. So hopefully, this show and the Syracuse region is going to bring some of that same intensity. But that's just really good TBT basketball right there. Intense stuff.
Always gets pretty wild. I mean, when you're playing for a lot of money, when you're playing for $1 million, the tempers get high. Let's get right in this. Now, Syracuse, we will be on the ground. At least I will be on the ground. I will be in Syracuse in a couple of days from this taping. So we're driving up Thursday. So we will be there to cover this live and in person the first 2 rounds before we meet in West Virginia. So obviously a pretty fun bracket. The defending champs have reloaded. They have a great roster. Big news. We'll talk about this a little bit more what this means for the team. But Jimmy Boeheim, who's not even on our slides, but was just added to the team. So adding a stretch 4 to help spell Marek Dolezaj at the 4-5 really adds a lot of shot making this team. India Rising is a fun story. Charge, this will be a pretty fun region, right?
Yeah, I think it's a solid region overall. Obviously, when you have the defending champs in Boeheim's Army hosting the region, they hosted this before a couple, 2-3 years back, I guess, with the COVID year, and had a great environment out there. The Syracuse team travels really, really well, and so to kind of reward them, this place is going to be packed. It's going to be fun. There's just amazing teams. Blue Collar, over-indexed last year. Surprised everyone. Put on a great show. Friday Beers is probably one of their best teams, or Armored Athlete, I should say, one of their best teams in a long time. And, I mean, just look how deep it is with Nerd and Brown and White, Newman Goretti. It's just loaded teams.
Well, what an incredible bracket this will be. And even like a lot of brackets, there is also, again, sort of a top team vibe where the favorites are the favorites, but these should all be really competitive games. So let's get right into this. So this Boeheim's versus India Rising. Now, what's interesting about this is before we get into the Boeheim's roster, they have a history of going deep and winning a lot of games. Also a history of struggling but prevailing in their first round games. So I tend to kind of need to be woken up to get right into this. So Charge, how do they avoid a slow start, you think, with this roster?
Yeah, I think this year is going to be a little different being at home. They'll have a lot of energy. And it's kind of interesting. Sideline cancer kind of seem to have that same curse where they just struggle early. You saw that, in their first game as well. And I don't think that's going to be a problem for Syracuse this year, being at home. They'll have the crowd behind them. They got a reloaded team, so going to be a lot of energy, a lot of fun. But I think it's just about their preparation will be solid, and it's not like I can't remember where they played last year, but somewhere out Illinois or Wichita or somewhere. But they'll be ready to go, and it'll be a lot of fun.
Now, I know you love, obviously, Kennedy and Kane are stalwarts, multiple-time champions, the kind of guys who do everything that's not in the box score. The box score will still need to be filled. You're losing Eric Devendorf, who's been the huge engine of their offense. Tyrese Rice, the rating MVP, has gone to Governor Cat Gang. Congrats to them, by the way, as we're taping this. They had just beaten Team Arkansas, so they will be the first team going to Dayton. So the points have to be gotten somewhere. So is D-Boss and Kyle Witcher, are they going to be the people who put up the points on this roster?
Yeah, I think so. And you always say I should correct you. They're actually the first team to go to Wichita, not Dayton. So that Omaha bracket's feeding through Wichita for that one regional game, which is pretty cool for Wichita. But we're not talking about them tonight. But you always say I should correct you when I bust you. But
sure, please.
But I think those are some great kind of high-level overseas ads with Boston, Wiltshire, and Tyler Ennis as well. So they've got a lot of good balance.
He's
so
nice.
When you lose a guy like Rice and you get lose a guy like Rice and Sykes and add Boston, Wiltshire, and Ennis, I mean, there's going to be no letdown. I mean, obviously Tyrese Rice is a level above most TBT players, but these guys here, I'll put them right up there with anybody. They've been in the business long enough, late 20s, early 30s, and they'll be ready to compete. But I look to see them handling the load, and Kennedy and Kane doing some of that dirty work as always.
Absolutely. Now, looking at the team they'll be playing, which is the new team, India Rising. Now, it's interesting. We'll just go ahead and do a little bit of private color. I will be going up to Syracuse with my partner. She is from Syracuse. She also happens to be Indian, and she heard this was the game, so now we're trying to get her in the door for this game as well, because she's like Syracuse, India. She's gonna have some slight split loyalties, but this is a really interesting concept, Team Charge. Like, it's the second biggest country in the world, so you got to imagine they can get 10 good ballers out of, India.
Yeah, no, I love the idea of what they're doing, and the thing is it's just a bummer that these guys grab Syracuse in the first round, because we've seen some really good teams come in, buy into the tournament, and unfortunately have to face a 1 seed. But I think these guys are going to be really out there. They are playing some overseas, some decent level leagues, and if they come together, play right, they're going to give Syracuse a challenge, especially if Syracuse starts slow like they have in the past. But it's going to be interesting, to say the least.
I think they play tough for at least the first half. What's interesting, too, is also notice that Jaz Baines, I believe, played at Queen's University, our old friends at D2, who won't be represented this year, but have one guy from their roster back in. And by the way, as we're watching this, Heartfire's cut to 1 at the half. So we're kind of having screens on right now. So they're playing pretty tight there.
Yeah, and that's going to be a great finish. But yeah, we have a small Charge connection. Go Cool Nateson was actually drafted by the Charge. So there's your random Charge fact of
who? Oh, okay.
Go Cool Nateson. Yeah, so he's a solid shooter. He doesn't look like it in Finland, but yeah, he can knock him down. But small Charge connection.
The first time I heard about the School of the Mines, first of all, I thought it was mimes, and then I thought it was a joke. I didn't actually think that was a real school. I was very confused. Like, I went to the Colorado School of Mines. I'm like, you're fucking.
Did you think like mimes? Like,
yeah, I thought it was like literally the French dudes at first. I thought first it was the French dudes, and I thought they were fucking with me. It turns out neither one's true.
Neither one. So. Yeah, apparently a very highly academic school. When I had to do some research on Go Cool to figure out who is this guy that the Charge just drafted, but a highly academic school.
There we go. So we have the nerd team versus brown and white. Now, let's go to this. First of all, the nerd team is obviously, I love the concept. And you and I both went to Division III schools, and I don't know how good your school is. Judging from how you do on these podcasts, I imagine not very good. I went to WarCU, which is a pretty elite school. So I went to a nerd school myself. I am a nerd, despite my complete inability to speak the English language. But you're taking all these guys from like Harvard, Brown, Yale. You got some guy, Jelon Kendrick's a little bit of an interesting story because, what's not on that list is there's also Ole Miss and Memphis. So none of those are academic schools. But the story here is really the Azar Swine. That's a huge pickup.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we had him on the show earlier in the year, and I don't follow as much as the college, especially, outside of the tournament during the regular year. But Walt, who's in our fantasy league, hardcore college basketball daily fantasy guy, and he was stoked to get Azar and draft him on our team, and so he's definitely someone to look at. But as you go down the roster, when you got guys like Kyle Casey and Brandon Sherrod, there's some good guys who are playing in some nice leagues that are going to be able to put up some numbers here. And I think the thing is we kind of call it a nerd team, but they know the game. They students of the game. They play smart, and they're going to be a really tough team.
I always wonder, because people always say that, the guys who are from academic schools can't play. But, there's an entire offense named after Princeton. There's a lot of basketball fundamentals. The Ivy League's they've had All-Americans. They've had championship-level squads. There's a lot of guys who are really smart, can't play ball. It is geometry. It's angles. It's a lot of math if you think about it in those terms. So the nerds can ball, and they're out to prove it. Now, you're usually a pretty big supporter of brown and white. So I'll let you go. I'll let you run here. What do you want to talk about? This is our squad. You really like brown and white a lot.
I do. I do like brown and white. I think they're obviously going to all have a competitive team once again this year. But I grew up in Western New York, and so Olean's right outside of Western New York. Some people consider it there, some people don't. But just have always followed UB growing up, brown and white growing up, just from the local aspect of them. But they have a really good team this year. They picked up Corey Sanders, who is a big time impact player for them, and then this is a true alumni team. They got 6-7 guys deep on alumni team, but with Marcus Posley, his claim to fame in the TBT is he helped what's now Woco Showtime to their first TBT victory back a few years back. So we know he can ball. And then what's interesting, you got Dion Wright, who was D'ing up on LeBron this weekend
at the Drew League.
Yeah, so he was at the Drew League, dropped 20 and guarded against LeBron. And so, yeah, a lot of interesting reading on Twitter about that. But, I mean, these are high-level guys that, can come out and play. And, they got some size out there, too, with I'm not going to pronounce his last name, Nadoy from the French Jeep
17
League.
Points, 17 points in French
crazy.
A. That's a centerpiece. That's a bucket.
League.
That's a bucket. Your French
league,
A,
so.
You're putting up 17 a game. That's a fucking bucket. You're 7 feet tall, put up 17 a game in French A. You're a bucket. You're not to be fucked with. This team actually could be pretty interesting. This will be a really
this
really
is a great first round matchup.
Yeah.
In Syracuse, this is definitely the game you don't want to miss in the first round. So obviously, don't miss any of the TBT action on Sling TV, of course. But
Sling,
hit those slingshots.
Best value in television.
Yeah,
absolutely. Best value in television. Okay, so now this is a matchup that we both have near and dear our hearts, as the slides take a little bit of time to go through the internet. But I'm looking right now at the Friday Beers versus the Mental Toughness team. Now, you'll normally see our picks. We're pretty high on Friday Beers, so we'll start there. And they have, so AJ Mahar has always run Armored Athlete. Jess, and we actually have heard Jess should be there. Quick note, programming note. Normally, we're splicing in our featured interviews with the shows. We're going to go ahead and run the Friday Beers one as a separate 21 episode B. So we're not going to splice it in now, but we did get in depth with some of the players in Friday Beers. AJ Mahar talked about how the team came together, what they're trying to do. We'll run that right after this episode, in fact. But look, it's still a lifestyle. It's still a bucket. It's still a bunch of guys who can play. And you got to start any conversation about Friday Beers with Eric Griffin this year, I think.
Yeah, no, you talked about where Friday Beer starts. If Jess is not on the sideline for Friday Beers, I'm not tuning in. I'm just done with Friday Beers, done with Armored Athlete.
She's there.
But so as long as Jess is there, then I'm still bought in. But yeah, this team here, I think, is, like I said, one of the best Friday Beers teams that they've had in the past. Hopefully Armand plays this year. He is solid. Unfortunately, he was on the roster last year, wasn't able to make it. But you got him. You got Eric Griffin, who just dominated last year, as you mentioned, that we got to talk about him, but led Team 23 to the final. So he's just an athletic, physical guy who's going to take care of business. You got NBA guys in there like Brantley. So you just got a deep roster here. The only change here, obviously Malcolm Miller, NBA guy too. Josh Perkins is out, but they added Tyler Stone to it, and Frankie Ferrari is out as well. And I can't remember who they added for him, but that was just recently too.
We tune into the show because we interview Ferrari's replacement. That is our guest on the show.
Well, there's the teaser.
I won't spoil
I
won't spoil it.
Yeah, no, that's so fresh. I couldn't even pick the name back out of the hat. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
And shout out to Hayner. Hayner's been shouldering a lot of interviews this year. So the guy's a TBT podcast legend at this point in time.
Don't tell my clients. Don't tell my clients that I'm not doing their work right now.
I hope no one.
Don't tell our dozens.
I hope no one at my work follows this because they know like you're spending way too much time doing this. But that's why I'm so exhausted this year. Work's been crazy, but it's all good.
Well, you got to make money somehow. I make mine through my adult film business. But besides the point. So. The Mental Toughness had a really tough loss last year. They've kind of reloaded. They actually took the Cheaters to a pretty tough game in the first round. They played tough. And they've got a pretty nice roster. A lot of guys from the Northeast, a lot of guys with New York State and New York City connections, this sort of area as well. New England guys. Obviously a tough team, but not much of a chance against Friday Beers, I'm assuming.
You would think that, but
not a bad team.
Yeah, well, you're seeing the TBT this year. It's kind of wild. There has not been many blowouts. So, any one of these games, one or two plays could have turned.
I will say this. I'm going to interrupt you real quick. That's why you have the microphone. I will say this is like the one blowout was big enough to make all of the rest of them not even necessary. Because TNT doubled up about Bland. So that was actually by itself about 10 blowouts. Yeah, so that was enough.
And that was expected. I don't know about that bad, but that was expected.
That was a public execution, but I apologize. The games were close. You were saying, go ahead.
Oh yeah, because I love the coaching staff of Mental Toughness. So their assistant coach is actually a Cleveland Charge assistant, Tyler Neal, and he's got a lot of experience with Team USA, working with the Charge, and he's a connection to these Akron guys. So you see, this is, like I said, as close to an Akron alumni team as you can get with Quincy Diggs, Malcolm Walters, Aaron Jackson, Isaiah Johnson. So they got a big Akron flavor, which is about 15 minutes from my house here. A lot of respect for Tyler Neal and what he's done working with Team USA in the Charge. And so I think this team's going to come really, really prepared, some high-level coaching, and they do have some good, steady players that can contribute. I wish they had Floyd this year, which they don't, but that is what it is. You gotta move on. Can't have the same team every year. Unfortunately, people got priorities, weddings, overseas contracts, agents, whatever it might be, but it's going to be another solid squad, and they're definitely not going to roll over.
People have lives besides TBT. Who are these people? My girlfriend would like to know them.
Yeah.
Someone
does.
One more matchup, and this is a team you like a lot, Blue Collar U. They had a surprising run very deep in their initial TBT of some hard-nosed defense against the Newman Goretti Saints. I'll let you talk about Blue Collar U because I know this is a team near to your heart. But we'll go ahead and make one correction. The slide shows CJ Massenberg, who I am understanding will not be playing.
Yeah, that was brought up on another podcast. So I haven't seen it publicly aside from there, but you have to assume, looking at some social media, it looks like he's having a baby like any time now. So I'm assuming that's the reason why he's not playing once again. Life at a basketball. So so we don't believe CJ Massenberg is playing based on what we heard on that podcast and what we gathered. But this team here, obviously Blue Collar U, they actually have a Fredonia guy coaching the team. So there is one Fredonia connection. So even though D3 still hasn't picked up a Fredonia guy or found one that's halfway good enough to represent D3 at the TBT level, we do have coaching involved. But when I look back at it last year, I think everyone was surprised by Blue Collar U, but they shouldn't have been when you really look at this team and what they're capable of. When you guys got guys like Nick Perkins, Wes Clark took over some games last year, got injured, so he's back again this year. It's just a solid team. CJ Massenberg's going to hurt losing him, so I think they got to figure out how to fill that void. But it's a solid team, and the thing that's crazy this year is there's no guarantee they run deep in these 8-team regions. Now you saw that with Cheaters and ALS tonight. I mean, 2 high-profile teams, great teams that get stuck meeting in round 2, just like Sideline Cancer and X are going to meet in round 2. So that's the crazy thing about this year's TBT. I love the 8 regions, but you got some high-profile teams going head-to-head really, really early. So watch out for that battle between Beers and Blue Collar U if that holds out.
Definitely. It could be an interesting matchup. Now I'll take the Newman Goretti Saints as the conversation because that's a pretty interesting squad. And the reason I want to talk about them is, and people who listen to this podcast know, again, my partner is from Syracuse. So even though I'm a huge University of Memphis fan, as you can see from the hat's logo, is the backup hat. The hat for the rest of the season is the Memphis hat. The same team I watch the second most is Syracuse. So seeing Scoop Jardine, not Scott Jardine, that's a typo. Scoop Jardine and Rick Jackson play for Newman Goretti. So they're actually going to be sleeping in a city they've spent a lot of time in. So they're both Syracuse starters, played deep in those teams. Also, they've got some really, really nice shooting coming back. And this team is not an easy out. So even though the Blue Collar is the favorite, this is, if you're looking for a dangerous lower seed, betting on 2 guys who played in the city they'll be playing in front of fans who might, if they're knowledgeable, root for them, there's worse proposition bets for a first-round set. I mean, they're not the quality of Buffalo. They're just not. But, it's a knockout game, and one game can be one game. That's just how it works. So I could see this being a fairly interesting first-round game. And with that, let's get into the picks. So this one, I think we agreed a lot on this one, if I remember correctly. Yeah, we agreed a lot on this one. We basically picked the exact same thing, which is
right. Very rare.
It's actually I was doing the decks for these shows recently, and we agreed a lot more than usual this year, actually, which is a bad sign, I think, for the teams.
We're probably rubbing off on each other, and
well, I mean, let's not get sexual here, Charge. But the point being is, I know that actually the Hardfire team is very upset with me because I was texting with Mike Iliano. And I said, I was talking about how I think they're the favorites. He's like, you're just trying to jinx us. And sure enough, they're back down 5 now in the third quarter. So by the time this gets aired, there's quite a possibility Mike's going to have a hit on me if they can't come back and win this game.
Oh, it was great. Yeah. It was great watch. Speaking of Mike trying to hold back these gigantic guys, so Mike's not a really big dude, and trying to hold back some of these basketball players. He's got 2 arms out and struggling, but he gave it his all, keeping those sidelines in order. So shout out to Mike for doing his part in the little tussle there.
Mike, the first rule of Fight Club is don't talk about Fight Club. Okay, Charge, why did you pick Friday beers?
It's just one of these ones. I've been a big believer in Friday beers for a while now. That Boeheim's team's getting a little more solid, though. I just thought they had some pieces, some pros that look really, really good with this team. This Boeheim's team retooling, so a lot of these guys haven't played before. Even some of the guys like Malachi Richardson not back this year. So just I think Friday Beers has a history of bringing some guys together and just playing really good, really tough together. But Boeheim's team's looking good. I mean, you can flip a coin here, but I'm high on Boeheim's. I'm high on D-Boss, but going to give the nod. And I can't pick against Vinny. So obviously Vinny's our guy, and assistant coach for the Beers. Got to go there. You're either muted or something busted.
I was muted. Something didn't bust. I was muted because I was chomping on something. I did finally get to meet Vinny. Vinny is one of the most delightful people I've met in the TBT community, and the fact that his ears are that big and he still held his head upright, it's just amazing to me. So, I think it's fantastic. I picked the Beers for the same reasons you said, but also I really think, Armored Athlete's always been a high middle class team that can win 1 or 2 games, maybe even 3, cause a lot of trouble, and then kind of crap out because they just didn't have the depth. Having the sponsorship over to Friday Beers gives AJ Mahar a wallet. You give that man a wallet, he's a dangerous, dangerous bad man. So he was able to augment an already good roster by vulturing what was left of Jimmy V and adding some high impact transfers like Eric Griffin. So you've got a really nice team. So there's no reason to think they can't come out through region. I think they're actually a pretty big favorite, to be honest with you. And I'm saying that, which totally means it's gonna blow up.
Yeah. I every time I really get behind AA and go hard on them, they don't have their best year. So I hope I don't jinx them this year. But love the team and the history behind them, and so I'm rooting for them.
And Kevin's going to yell at us for this.
Kevin's always going to yell at us.
Belby's going to be pissed at us. In fact, I'm going to see that person.
We haven't talked to him in a while, but he claims he listens to the podcast while he's working out in the morning.
Belby is going to murder us. Belby is going to murder me. In person, going to murder me. It's fine.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to be there, so I'll let you handle that.
Okay, so this has been our Syracuse regional preview. Charge, any closing thoughts on Syracuse?
No, it's going to be dogfight there. I mean, look at those teams, solid performance. So don't miss out on this. Tune in.
Can't wait. I will be courtside. We'll talk to you courtside. Charge. Well, maybe we'll do a brunch show that Saturday morning from the court. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, give me a holler. I'll be ready.
Let's do it. Okay, this has been Charge and Hayner present Zoom the TBT with our Syracuse regional preview. Signing off.
Hope you enjoyed listening to Zoom the TBT with Charge and Hayner. Subscribe to YouTube, follow on Twitter, and give us your money.